Hello everyone, this is Robin Warder, host of the true crime podcast, The Trail Went Cold. If you grew up watching the classic television show Unsolved Mysteries, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I profile a new unsolved murder or missing persons case and share all the baffling details. Afterward, I provide my own personal analysis and theories about what might have happened. This is a show for true crime buffs who are fascinated by cold cases and love to discuss them and pick them apart in an attempt to figure out the truth. So be sure to check out our podcast to learn about some truly bizarre unsolved mysteries where the trail went cold.
The Oracle Network.
Hello and welcome to Reverie True Crime. I'm your host, Paige. Please stay tuned until the end of the episode to hear your Patreon shoutouts. This story will not be the easiest to listen to, and it was not the easiest to research and write about. I had never heard of this case and stumbled upon it by accident. I was taken by surprise by how many cases are so similar to this one, even getting more gruesome. The infant victim in this case and others similar obviously did not even have a fighting chance. It is so evil and deeply wicked when a mother who decides to grow a precious life inside of her and makes the decision to bring that life into the world as his or her protector, provider, safe haven, and being an actual mother that is supposed to be everything positive in their life, turns out to be the one who strips the child's life away forever. An innocent and pure newborn life, only 28 days of living in this world, and then suddenly, the so-called mother thinks she has the right to take that life away in such a manner I could not even believe it. Let's get right into this story. China Arnold was born on March 29, 1980, in Dayton, Ohio. There is not a lot of information about her until the year 2000, when she was convicted of kidnapping and then forgery in 2002. In 2005, China and her significant other, Terrell Talley, were living in a housing complex together with China's children. China had dreams of becoming a counselor, taking classes at a community college in Dayton. Unfortunately, things took an extremely dark turn when China and Terrell went to a park on August 29, 2005. They shared a bottle of Bacardi 151 together while the children were being babysat by Terrell's sister. China had not long ago given birth to a baby girl, Paris Talley. China and Terrell began verbally attacking each other when they started downing the alcohol, bickering over whether Paris was really Terrell's baby or not. He had his suspicions that Paris may not be his, because he thought China was cheating on him around the time she got pregnant. The two stayed at the park for 2 hours, having a heated, intoxicated argument. Finally arriving home, neither of them had calmed down. They were both still extremely angry and drunk. Things got physical, with Terrell giving China a slap to the face, and then she bit him on the lips. Terrell decided the best thing to do was to get out of the apartment and try to calm his nerves. China was still pacing around in the apartment. Her fury and her inebriation had not subsided. She grabbed baby Paris, who was only 28 days old, opened the microwave, and put her inside. China's fingers pressing 200 on the microwave, burning this innocent life for 2 minutes. When she took Paris out of the microwave, she carried her to the baby's plastic bathtub, ran the water, possibly thinking she was going to ease the burns. But instead, there was skin floating in the tub that was shedding off of Terrell Talley's tiny body. Later, Terrell came back home and saw his baby girl lying on one of the couches in the living room, and he thought that she was asleep. China had passed out on a different couch due to how drunk she was. Terrell curled up on the couch with China, not knowing that he would wake up to see the baby and her injuries. Morning came, and Terrell opened his drowsy eyes. When he went to pick baby Paris up, she was frigid and stiff. He and China took off with the baby, and they drove her to the Children's Medical Center around 7:15 that morning. However, when they arrived, the doctors could not do much for Paris. They took her temperature, and it was 95 degrees. She had no pulse. She was not breathing, and her blood pressure did not register. The doctors could only try to revive the baby, while China and Terrell watched their attempts for 15 minutes. Terrell started to burst into tears. Paris was gone. China began to scream that Paris was not burned, that her skin was coming off. Something the hospital staff found weird was that the baby had a clean little nightgown on that did not have leakage or skin on it as they expected it should. The staff were all so confused by Paris's injuries. She had burns, but they were unlike any they'd seen before. The burns were not from hot liquids or things they normally see on people that have scalding burns. This was different. At the hospital, they asked China what exactly happened to this precious little baby. Her story was that she got home around 2 a.m, saying that she was trying to feed her daughter, but she would not drink. She went on to say that she held Paris in her arms and gently laid the little one over into the bassinet with a fan pointing on her. China said that when she woke up the next morning, her daughter wasn't acting right. First, she got her other kids ready for school and got them onto their bus. She yelled for Terrell, and that's when they fled straight to the hospital. From the hospital, China and Terrell were taken directly to the police station. This is where China starts to contradict her previous accounts of what happened. Now, let's take a quick commercial break and let me tell you all about today's sponsor. AnnaLouisa.com has sustainable jewelry that you or someone you know will absolutely love. It's usually hard for me to find a style of jewelry that I like. Anna Louisa changed that for me. I found pieces that are actually my style, which I would call boho, but that's definitely not the only style they have. There are an array of styles. You can have fun with this jewelry as well by stacking pieces together and mixing and matching. Their jewelry is super versatile and can be worn with anything in your closet, from t-shirts and loungewear to dresses and pantsuits and everything in between. The jewelry at Anna Louisa is high-quality jewelry that is also environmentally friendly. Everything is priced affordably. They use recycled materials whenever possible, and their pieces are 100% carbon and water neutral, because the choices we make really do matter. Go browse their stunning pieces at Ana Luisa, which is ANALUISA. Get a discount when you go to shop.analuisa.com/truecrime. That's shop.analuisa.com/truecrime. Discount code TRUECRIME. During questioning, China said that she got home at 9:30 or 10 that night, not 2 in the morning as she had said initially. She told the police she was laying down on the couch with Paris on her chest, and they slept until Paris began to cry around 2:30 that morning, and it woke her up out of her deep slumber. China went on to say that she went and made a bottle for her daughter and started to feed her. She stated that she changed Paris's diaper and laid back down on the couch with Paris on her chest again, and they both fell back asleep. She said she awoke that morning and Terrell was laying on the couch with her. She said she did not know where Paris was. China said she thought Terrell had taken Paris upstairs and laid her in the bassinet. Terrell's interview with the police did not match China's at all. He told the police that he came home around 3 or 4 in the morning and went to sleep on the couch where China was. He woke up and realized Paris was face down on the other, bigger couch, deceased. Authorities were granted a search warrant for their apartment, which again, China's 3 other children lived there as well. The detective was told by the coroner that Paris's burns were caused by a thermal injury of some kind. Some places on the baby were severely burned, and other parts of her body had no burns at all. For example, her back was free of burns. The detective went back to the apartment, searching for a rectangular object like a heating pad or cookie tin that could have possibly been the cause of these burns. The police obviously saw the microwave, but they had no reason to even think twice about a microwave. So far, they couldn't find anything that would give answers as to where these burns came from. They made their way upstairs to discover a plastic tub. It was filled with murky water and what looked like some type of remains and residue. It was taken into evidence. Other than that, the search of the house did not provide them with any answers as to what happened to the 28-day-old baby. The night before Paris passed away, neighbors told police that Terrell's sister, Leonda, had been babysitting China's kids. The police talked to China about this, and she confirmed that it was true. Leandra was babysitting while she and Terrell went out for a few hours around 7 that evening on August 29th. China said when they returned to the apartment, she stayed outside for a while and went inside around 9:30 or 10, and Leandra was there. China said that she fed her daughter when she got home and noticed that Paris felt warm to the touch, so she laid the baby down. Again, she repeated what she said about Paris waking her up at 2:30 that morning and how they rushed Paris to the hospital. China's story started to crumble more when she was taken in for questioning for a 3rd time on August 30th. The police had found out that the neighbors spotted China on her porch around 4 in the morning. They knew about the argument at the park, and the police told her about the tub of water they discovered. China claimed she had given Paris a bath around noon and didn't empty the tub. She also said that she and Terrell were just arguing about her driving, but she eventually confessed that they were having a dispute about the paternity of Paris. In the beginning, China said she was not on her porch at 4 that morning, but after a while she confessed that she was, because as her story goes, she was waiting on Terrell to come back home. She said earlier he had taken off with Paris. Of course, the authorities wanted to know why she did not tell this in the first or second interview. China said it was because she loved Terrell so much and was trying to protect him. The police asked China if Terrell returned Paris with burns on her, and China would not answer the question. The police let Terrell vacate the station that day, but arrested China for child endangerment. Investigators suspected she was the only person in the apartment with the baby when she was burned. A few days later, they had to let China go because they didn't have enough evidence to convict her of a crime. However, in 2006, the coroner had learned about microwave experiments that had been tried on pigs that were the same size of a little baby, and the fact that more children than you'd ever think had been put in microwaves. The coroner found out about a similar case in Virginia, where a baby was found dead in a microwave, and the burns in these cases were all so alike, and it was likely that this is what happened to Paris. The police went back to the apartment on May 18, 2006. Even though that's not where China and Terrell were residing anymore, the microwave remained there. They took the microwave to be analyzed by an examiner from the Miami Valley Crime Lab. There, they discovered small amounts of DNA from the top of the inside of the microwave, and it was a match to Paris. After the coroner did a test of his own on the microwave, he said that due to the size of Paris, she definitely could fit in there, and the burn patterns on the baby were consistent with the heating component of the microwave. The coroner concluded that Paris was put into the microwave on her back and faced upwards towards the heating part, also stating that Paris passed away no earlier than 1 o'clock that morning and no later than 3 on August 30th, 2005. Medical experts would testify later that Paris passed away after her temperature reached 107 to 108 degrees Fahrenheit. China was arrested for the aggravated murder of her daughter Paris on November 27, 2006. She was charged in December of the aggravated murder that same year because they had enough evidence now to prove that she was the one who caused the death of a child under the age of 13 intentionally, and it was suspected that China was the only one at home at the time. Altogether, there were 3 trials. The first trial went on from January to February of 2008, but it was determined a mistrial because there was a new finding of purported evidence that it may not have been China who killed Paris all along. Based purely off of speculations and allegations, China's 5-year-old nephew, named only by his initials DT in court records, was accused by 8-year-old MQ, Terrell's son from a prior relationship. The 8-year-old saying he saw with his own eyes the 5-year-old putting Paris in the microwave and watched him turn it on. All of this was brought into court in August of 2008 for a retrial. The court would not allow the defense to call 2 more witnesses that said the 5-year-old told them he in fact put the baby in the microwave. The evidence in this case was presented, and the jury still came back with a guilty verdict for China. But during the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury deadlocked. They could not all agree on whether China should receive a death sentence or life in prison. The trial court sentenced China Arnold to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and when China tried to file a motion for a new trial, she was denied by the court. In November of 2010, the court made changes to China's sentence. The prosecutor had committed wrongful conduct and error in prohibiting the testimony of a witness. December of 2010, the court rejected the state's motion for reconsideration. China was still incarcerated, but had the case tried for the third and final time. It went on from April to May of 2011. At the trial, this is what the state mounted as evidence. Quote, "On the evening of August 29, 2005, Terrell Talley's sister, Leonda, offered to babysit Paris while Terrell and China went out. Terrell and China left around 6:30 or 7 that evening, purchased a bottle of Bacardi 151, and went to a park. They sat in the park and drank almost the whole bottle, taking turns. While at the park, they argued about whether Paris was Terrell's baby, because Terrell had heard that China had been cheating on him. After about 2 hours, they came home. China was driving crazy, going way beyond the speed limit. When they arrived back home between 9 and 10 p.m., they got into a physical altercation in the parking lot, during which, according to Terrell, China bit his lip and then he slapped her in the face. Witnesses described China as very intoxicated and barely able to walk and talk. When Terrell and China came back, Terrell's sister Leonda took her children home and put them to bed. In the meantime, Terrell went with the next-door neighbor, Jason Strofe, to a nearby apartment called the Bootleg to buy some beer. Terrell and Jason then came back and drank the beer on Jason's porch. When Leonda came back outside, she saw China attempting to drive away in the car. Leonda told China that she was too drunk to drive and took China to get cigarettes. On the way back, China asked Leonda to stop the car because she thought she was going to vomit. They returned about 40 minutes after they left, and China went into her own house. Subsequently, Terrell went to an apartment called The Spot, where he and other individuals normally sold drugs. Terrell stayed at The Spot until 5:30 or 6 in the morning, when he returned to China's apartment. The state went on to give evidence that Paris was still alive and okay at various intervals when Leandra was babysitting, and after China got back from a short run to buy cigarettes. Leonda and Marcelina Perry said on the stand that Terrell asked Leonda to check on China and the baby. They both said at 11:45 that night, Leonda did check on China and Paris. Marcelina and Leonda said that China was passed out asleep on the couch while Paris was sitting beside another couch in her car seat. Leandra checked on Paris first and said she didn't have any injuries at the time and she was just sleeping. Everything was fine around 12 that night. Leonda locked the door and took the house key over to Terrell at The Spot. In some articles and court records, they say Leonda and sometimes they say Leandra. China told the police that around 2:30 that morning, she last saw her daughter alive when Paris woke her with her cries. China claims that she fed Paris, changed her diaper, and went back to sleep. Paris had been deceased anywhere between 1 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. The state went on to say that China was seen on her porch at 4 that morning, and Paris's DNA was in the microwave. The DNA test results showed some kind of see-through substance or alleged skin in the tub. To add to that, 2 women were sharing a cell with China, and they got into an argument. During this verbal back and forth, one of the inmates told China that she was a baby killer. In response to that, China allegedly said, quote, "I didn't mean to do it." According to Linda Williams, who said she was in a romantic and sexual relationship with China, said China confessed to her that she did microwave Paris because she was scared and worried that if the paternity test came back that Terrell was not the father, that he would leave her. Linda was recorded on tape saying, quote, "She said she put the baby into the microwave and started it and left the house." Linda also asked China how she got the baby in the microwave, and all China allegedly said was, quote, "She fit right in." There is only one other possible motive China may have had that came to light when Terrell admitted to her that he had slept with a neighbor, and possibly her doing this awful, heinous, inexcusable act to baby Paris was to get back at Terrell in the most revolting way. Terrell testified that at least on 2 different occasions she proclaimed, quote, "I killed my baby." Terrell went on to say that China told him time and time again that if he had not cheated on her, his baby would still be alive. When it was the defense's turn, the prosecution's timeline of events was put into question, also challenging the testimony of the apartment being locked with no one having access other than China after 11:45 that night. The defense showed evidence proving that Terrell was Paris's biological father and claimed that he was a jealous, violent man. After all of the evidence was presented on both sides, the jury was off to deliberate. The defense was trying hard to push the narrative that Terrell could have easily put Paris in the microwave, going by the evidence presented. On May 13, 2011, again, the jury concluded that China was guilty of aggravated murder. Following the guilt phase of the trial, the sentencing phase was put on hold. This was so China could get a mental exam. She had an average IQ and suffered from a low-grade chronic depressive condition, as well as an alcohol and drug problem. The court let the defense and the prosecution give their testimonies and exhibits in regard to the allegations of the 5-year-old DT, China's nephew, committing or not committing the murder. The mother of the 5-year-old testified that he was not even in the home the night of Paris's death. MQ, the 8-year-old, Terrell's son, from a previous relationship who blamed the 5-year-old, wasn't even in the area when all of this happened to even witness anything. Ultimately, the jury listened to both sides and concluded the nephew was not involved, and each juror agreed that China should be sentenced to life in prison without parole, sparing her the death penalty, which was granted on May 20th, 2011. According to DaytonDailyNews.com, Assistant County Prosecutor David Franciscelli said the jury's decision not to recommend the death penalty did not disappoint him. Quote, "I respect their decision. This defendant will spend the remainder of her living days in prison." Defense attorney John Paul Ryan, seemingly relieved by the life sentence, too offered the jury, quote, "a word of thanks," just before Wiseman discharged them. China's family also had some words to say after the sentencing. Wanda J. Stewart, China's aunt, said, quote, "We speak for the truth. She is innocent. We're going to let justice take its place." Wanda said that she was relieved that the jury did not give China a death sentence, saying, quote, "I'm glad that they used common sense and maybe a little doubt." Bishop Richard Cox with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference said, quote, "She needs to be set free. She does not need to be incarcerated. This is racism. This is injustice." Crystal McGehee said, quote, "China wanted this baby with all her heart. That's all she talked about was having a baby girl. I asked the question, can she get a fair trial in Dayton because too many people have heard of it and they have already judged her? So, family and friends of China, at least at the time, were screaming about her innocence, how this was racism, and it's reported that her defense attorney said she shouldn't have been charged because of how drunk she was. In 2013, China asked for a new trial, but her request was shut down. In a written statement, prosecutor Matt Heck said, quote, "This defendant was found guilty by 24 jurors during 2 different jury trials. With today's decision by the Ohio Supreme Court declining to accept her final appeal, we hope that finally this horrifying case is closed and the defendant will serve the rest of her life in prison for murdering her own 28-day-old baby girl in a microwave oven." Paris was buried in the West Memory Garden Cemetery in the baby section. This story also made me think about people who leave their babies and children with people that they don't really know. The babysitter may seem great, but the child's parent doesn't really know them. I've seen people get desperate for a babysitter, and at times they look through Craigslist, the newspaper, or Facebook groups, and to me that is very dangerous. Especially if you don't know if they have mental illnesses that they may not be treating, or if they have issues with anger and will physically hurt your child in some way, among many other things. There is a website called kidsit.com, KIDSIT.com, and it will tell you how to get a background check on a babysitter. If you are listening to this and you need to use that website, please do so. I'll also put it in the description of the show notes and other resources. Just talking about this case really made me think of parents that do leave their children with people they really don't know. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Before I go, I want to thank my awesome Patreon members at patreon.com/reverytruecrime. I want to thank you all so much for your extra support of the podcast and myself. Thank you Erica, TZ, Lorraine, Kara, Corey, Dooley, Denise, Justin, Angel, Tyler, Melissa, Kimberly, Darling Jade, Marianne, Jamie, Sapper, Iris, Jigglypuff, Jimmy, Joey, Shannon, James, Chelsea, and Matt. If you'd like to support the podcast for $3 a month, you'll get one bonus episode a month, which started back in October of 2020. So you'll have those episodes, plus horrible audio and research of past episodes that I've taken down and want to redo in more depth if you'd like to listen to those. You'll also get merch in the mail and ad-free early access to these episodes. Thank you to everyone listening here, the support, the chats on social media. I just love you guys. Until next time, everyone stay safe and take care.